"Mom, this is your new home now," Sarah said with a smile that needed to Sigala her eyes. Then she handed the nurse my small suitcase, kissed my cheek with lips cold as ice, and walked out without looking back on my 70th birthday. I stood frozen in the antiseptic-scented lobby of Sunny Pines nursing home, still clutching the birthday card she'd given me that morning, to new beginnings. It read in cheerful script, now revealing its true, cruel meaning. The nurse, Lisa, according to her name tag, touched my arm gently. "Mrs. Mitchell, let me show you to your room. Your daughter mentioned you might be a bit confused at first." I wasn't confused. I was betrayed. "Has your family member ever made a decision about your life without your consent? Have you experienced similar treatment from your children? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to know which city you're listening from and if anything like this has happened to you. My name is Eleanor Mitchell. I am 70 years old, and until that day, I believed I understood the limits of betrayal. I was wrong." The nursing home attendant, Lisa, according to her name tag, touched my shoulder gently. "Mrs. Mitchell, let me show you to your room. You must be tired after such a big day." I wasn't tired. I was shattered. But I nodded and followed her, my legs moving automatically while my mind refused to process what had just happened. "Your daughter mentioned you might be a bit confused at first," Lisa said as we walked down a hallway that smelled of antiseptic and canned peas. "She said to tell you that this is for the best and that she'll visit next weekend with your granddaughter." I didn't respond. The words, "a bit confused," echoed in my head. I wasn't confused. I was betrayed. The room was small but private. A single bed with hospital corners, a nightstand with a lamp, a dresser with 4 drawers, a small bathroom, and a window overlooking the parking lot where I had last seen my daughter's car disappearing into the distance. "Your daughter dropped off some of your things," Lisa said, pointing to 2 suitcases in the corner. She said she'd bring more later. 2 suitcases. 70 years of life reduced to 2 suitcases. "Dinner is at 6. Lisa continued, her voice gentle but professional. "There's a common room down the hall where most residents gather in the evenings. It might be nice to meet some new friends." Friends. The word felt hollow. My real friends were expecting me at my home tomorrow for a birthday celebration that would never happen. "Thank you," I said mechanically, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Lisa hesitated at the door. "It's always difficult at first, Mrs. Mitchell, but most people adjust quite well after a few weeks." After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my coat. I couldn't bring myself to unpack the suitcases. That would make this real. My phone rang in my purse. My heart leaped. Sarah? But it was my friend Margaret. "Ellie, I was just checking about tomorrow. Do you need me to bring anything for your birthday dinner?" I swallowed hard. "Margaret, there's been a change of plans." My voice cracked. Sarah has moved me to Sunny Pines nursing home." The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. "Without telling you in advance?" Margaret finally asked, her voice tight with controlled anger. She said it was a birthday surprise. The bitter laugh that escaped me sounded nothing like my usual self. "Oh, Ellie." Margaret's voice softened. "I'm coming over, right now." "No," I said quickly. "Not today. I need time to think." After hanging up, I finally removed my coat and sank back onto the bed. The events of the day played in my mind like a film I couldn't stop. Sarah's unusual cheerfulness that morning, the long drive. The moment we pulled into the nursing home driveway, and I realized what was happening. The prepared paperwork, the administrator who clearly had been expecting us. The swift efficiency with which I was processed and deposited, like a package at a post office. I had protested, of course, asked questions, demanded answers. "Mom, we've talked about this," Sarah had said, though we most certainly had not. "Your house is too big for you to manage alone. You keep forgetting things. It's not safe anymore." "I don't forget things," I had insisted. "I misplace them sometimes, but that's not the same as forgetting." "You left the stove on last month," she countered. "Once, in 45 years of cooking." "The property taxes are eating up your savings," she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "This place is all-inclusive. You'll have meals, activities, medical care, and I'll visit often, I promise." The promise hung in the air between us like a soap bubble, beautiful, fragile, and ultimately empty. Now, alone in my new room, I opened one of the suitcases. On top was a framed photograph of Sarah, her husband Robert, and their 15-year-old daughter Emma. I placed it on the nightstand, then continued unpacking. Clothes I didn't particularly like, toiletries, a few books, my jewelry box that contained only costume pieces, no photo albums, no keepsakes, nothing that truly mattered to me. As I placed the last item in the dresser drawer, I noticed a small envelope that had fallen to the bottom of the suitcase. Inside was a birthday card, signed by Sarah, Robert, and Emma. "Happy 70th birthday, Mom, divided by Grandma. We hope you enjoy your new home." The premeditation of it all suddenly hit me. The card had been purchased in advance. This wasn't a spontaneous decision, it was a carefully orchestrated plot, and somehow, that made it infinitely worse. I don't remember much about that first night. I skipped dinner. I didn't unpack the second suitcase. I lay on the unfamiliar bed and stared at the ceiling, too shocked to cry, too numb to scream, too exhausted to fight. The next day was my actual birthday. No one at Sunny Pines knew or cared. I went through the motions: breakfast in the dining hall, a mandatory wellness check with a nurse, an orientation session for new residents. I smiled when appropriate, nodded when necessary, and kept the volcano of my emotions safely contained. Margaret called again. So did my other two close friends, Diane and Patricia. I told them I wasn't ready for visitors. The truth was, I couldn't bear for them to see me in this place, stripped of my dignity and independence. 5 days passed in a fog. I learned the nursing home routine: meals at rigid times, medications dispensed with military precision, activities designed to keep aging minds and bodies occupied, bingo, crafts, movie nights. I participated minimally, spending most of my time in my room, staring out the window at the parking lot, watching visitors come and go. On the 6th day, something changed. The fog of shock began to lift, replaced by a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I realized I had a choice. I could either accept this new reality, or I could fight back. And Eleanor Mitchell had never been one to accept injustice without a fight. I started by calling my bank. After navigating an infuriating automated system, I finally reached a human being. "I'd like to check my account balance," I said, providing my identification information. "Mrs. Mitchell, your account shows a withdrawal of $50,000 made 5 days ago," the bank representative informed me. "That leaves a current balance of $812. The room seemed to spin around me. $50,000? That's not possible. I didn't make any such withdrawal. "The withdrawal was made in person, Mrs. Mitchell, with your ID and signature." "That wasn't me," I said, my voice rising. "I've been in a nursing home for the past week." There was an uncomfortable pause. "The withdrawal was made by Sarah Mitchell, who is listed as having power of attorney." Power of attorney? I had never given Sarah power of attorney. "There must be some mistake," I insisted. "Can you send me the documentation for this power of attorney?" "Of course. We'll mail it to your address on file." "No," I said quickly. "I'm not at that address anymore. Please email it to me." I provided my email address, handshaking so badly I had to repeat myself twice. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. $50,000, almost my entire life savings, gone. But how could Sarah have power of attorney? I had never signed such a document. I would have remembered something that significant. Unless a memory surfaced. 3 months ago, Sarah had brought over a stack of papers, insurance forms, she'd said. I needed to update my policies. I had signed where she indicated, trusting her completely. After all, she was my daughter, my only child, the person I loved most in the world, the person I thought loved me. I called Margaret immediately. Unlike my other friends, Margaret was not just a retired teacher like me. She had been a legal secretary for 20 years before switching to education. "Margaret, I need your help," I said, my voice surprisingly steady given the circumstances. "I think Sarah has stolen $50,000 from my account using a fraudulent power of attorney." Margaret didn't sound surprised. "I've been doing some research, Ellie. There's something fishy about this whole situation. Can you get out of there? Can I pick you up?" "I don't know if I'm allowed to leave," I admitted. The thought hadn't even occurred to me. "Ellie, unless you've been legally declared incompetent, which I highly doubt, you're not a prisoner. You're a paying resident. You can come and go as you please." The idea was revolutionary. I wasn't a prisoner. I was a customer. "Pick me up in an hour," I said, a plan already forming in my mind. After hanging up, I changed into my best outfit from the limited selection in my suitcase, a pair of navy slacks and a light blue blouse. I applied a touch of lipstick and combed my silver hair. Then I walked confidently to the front desk. "I'll be going out with a friend for lunch," I informed the receptionist, a young woman with bright purple hair. "I should be back by dinner." She barely looked up from her computer. "Sure, Mrs. Mitchell. Just sign out here." She pushed a logbook toward me. That's simple. No questions, no resistance. Margaret arrived exactly on time, her ancient Volvo pulling up to the entrance with a squeal of brakes that needed replacing. The sight of her round, white-haired, with her signature oversized glasses brought tears to my eyes. We embraced in the lobby, holding on to each other perhaps longer than normal. Then we walked out together, my head held high as I passed through the automatic doors into the fresh spring air. Once in the car, Margaret turned to me. "First stop, my house for lunch. Second stop, my lawyer's office. I've already called him. He's waiting for us at 2:00. "Margaret, I can't afford a lawyer. Sarah took almost all my money." Margaret waved away my concern. "Howard was my brother-in-law before Janet died. He's doing this as a favor. And besides," she added with a grim smile, "once he hears your story, I think he'll be happy to work on contingency." Over lunch at Margaret's cozy house, a meal that tasted infinitely better than the institutional food I'd been eating for a week, I told her everything. The surprise birthday trip, the nursing home ambush, the discovery of the missing money. "But there's something I don't understand," I concluded. "Why would Sarah need $50,000 so desperately that she would do this to me?" Margaret took a sip of her tea. "I think I might know. Diane's daughter works at the same company as Robert. There have been rumors of major layoffs. And from what she's heard, Robert's position is on the chopping block." This was news to me. Sarah never mentioned any problems with Robert's job. "There's more," Margaret continued. "Patricia's son is a real estate agent. He told her that Sarah and Robert have put a deposit on a vacation home in Florida, an expensive vacation home. The pieces were starting to come together, forming a picture I didn't want to see. So they needed money for a down payment," I said slowly, "and they used mine without asking." "And they needed to get you out of your house," Margaret added. "I'm guessing they planned to sell it." My house. The home where I had raised Sarah, where I had lived with my husband until he passed away 12 years ago, the place filled with a lifetime of memories. "They can't sell my house without my permission," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't true. With power of attorney, Sarah could do exactly that. Howard Bernstein's law office was small but immaculately maintained. The lawyer himself was a tall, thin man in his 70s with a full head of white hair and alert blue eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mrs. Mitchell," he greeted me, shaking my hand firmly. "Margaret has told me a bit about your situation, but I'd like to hear it from you." I told my story once again, this time focusing on the legal details, the suspected fraudulent power of attorney, the unauthorized withdrawal, the nursing home admission that I had not agreed to. Howard listened without interruption, taking occasional notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me directly. "Mrs. Mitchell, based on what you've told me, you have a strong case for financial elder abuse. If the power of attorney was obtained fraudulently, which seems likely, then the withdrawal was theft, plain and simple. And while your daughter had the right to suggest a nursing home, she had no right to force you into one or misrepresent your mental capacity." "What can we do?" I asked. "First, we need to obtain a copy of this supposed power of attorney and examine it carefully. Second, we need to file a police report about the unauthorized withdrawal. Third, we need to secure your house before any attempt can be made to sell it." He leaned forward, his expression softening. "But before we do any of that, I want to ask you a difficult question, Mrs. Mitchell. Are you prepared to take legal action against your daughter if necessary?" The question hit me like a physical blow. Despite everything, Sarah was still my daughter, the baby I had held in my arms, the child whose scraped knees I had bandaged. The teenager I had stayed up waiting for on prom night, the woman I had helped move into her first apartment. "I need to talk to her first," I said finally. "I need to hear her explanation." Howard nodded. "That's your right, but I would strongly advise having that conversation in my presence. People who commit this kind of betrayal often respond with manipulation or gaslighting when confronted." I agreed to his terms and he immediately picked up his phone. "Let's call your daughter right now, see if she's available to meet with us this afternoon." My heart raced as he dialed Sarah's number, putting it on speakerphone. She answered on the third ring. "Hello? Sarah Mitchell? This is Howard Bernstein, an attorney representing your mother, Eleanor Mitchell. She's here with me now." There was a long pause. "My mother is in a nursing home," Sarah said carefully. "She's been having memory issues. What is this about?" "Your mother appears perfectly competent to me," Howard replied smoothly, "and she has some questions about a power of attorney and a recent withdrawal from her bank account. Would you be available to meet with us today to discuss these matters?" Another pause, longer this time. "I'm very busy today." "I understand. Tomorrow morning, perhaps? Or would you prefer we take our questions directly to the police?" The threat was subtle, but clear. "Fine," Sarah snapped. "Today at 4, my office." She provided an address and hung up without saying goodbye. Howard turned to me. "That gives us about an hour to prepare. Let's use it wisely." The hour passed quickly as Howard briefed me on what to expect and how to respond. At 3:30, we left his office and drove to a gleaming glass building in the heart of downtown, where Sarah worked as a marketing executive. The receptionist led us to a conference room where Sarah was already waiting. She looked up when we entered, her expression a mixture of surprise and irritation. "Mom," she said, standing, "what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at Sunny Pines." "I decided to take a day trip," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt, "to figure out why my bank account is suddenly $50,000 lighter." Sarah's face flushed, but she quickly composed herself. "I thought we agreed that I would handle your finances from now on. You've been getting confused. Paying the same bill twice, forgetting appointments." "I've never paid the same bill twice in my life," I countered, "and I keep a calendar for appointments. Try again." Howard stepped forward. "Miss Mitchell, we have reason to believe that the power of attorney you're using to access your mother's funds was obtained fraudulently. We've requested a copy of the document from the bank, but perhaps you'd like to explain how you obtained your mother's signature?" Sarah's composure cracked. "I did what I had to do. Do you have any idea how expensive nursing homes are? And the house needs repairs before we can sell it. The roof alone will cost $15,000 to replace." "So you admit the money was for your own purposes, not for your mother's care," Howard pressed. "It's all connected," Sarah insisted. "The nursing home costs money. The house needs work. And yes, Robert and I have financial obligations too. We're the ones taking care of everything." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension, the diamond earrings I'd never seen before, the perfectly manicured nails and highlighted hair. "Where's the rest of the money going, Sarah?" I asked quietly. "A vacation home in Florida, perhaps?" Her eyes widened. "How did you—" She caught herself, but it was too late. "It doesn't matter how I know," I said. "What matters is that you took my life savings without my knowledge or consent. You put me in a nursing home I don't need and can't afford. You planned to sell my house out from under me, and you did all this on my birthday." To her credit, Sarah at least had the decency to look ashamed about the timing. The birthday part wasn't planned, it just happened to be when we could get you into Sunny Pines. There was a waiting list, but they had a sudden opening. "How convenient," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Howard cleared his throat. "Miss Mitchell, here's what's going to happen. You're going to return the $50,000 to your mother's account by noon tomorrow. You're going to provide me with the original power of attorney document so I can begin proceedings to have it invalidated. And you're going to cease any actions related to selling your mother's house." Sarah's face hardened. "And if I don't?" "Then by tomorrow afternoon we'll be filing police reports for fraud and financial elder abuse, as well as seeking an emergency injunction to freeze all your assets pending investigation." The color drained from Sarah's face. "You can't be serious? You would press criminal charges against your own daughter?" The question was directed at me, not Howard, and despite everything, it pierced my heart. "I don't want to," I admitted, "but I will if I have to. You've left me with nothing, Sarah. No home, no savings, no dignity. What choice do I have?" Something shifted in Sarah's expression, not remorse exactly, but perhaps the first recognition of the magnitude of what she had done. "I'll return the money," she said finally, "and I'll bring the power of attorney document to Mr. Bernstein's office tomorrow. But the nursing home is non-refundable for the first month. That money is already gone." Howard looked at me, eyebrows raised in question. It was my decision to make. I want to go home, I said firmly. Today, now. Sarah shook her head. Mom, be reasonable. You can't live alone anymore. You need supervision, assistance. What I need is to be treated with respect, I countered. If there comes a time when I truly can't manage on my own, we can revisit the conversation. But that will be my decision, not yours. The ride to my house was silent and tense. Howard had insisted on coming along, and Sarah had grudgingly agreed. As we pulled into my driveway, I felt a surge of emotion at the sight of my modest but well-maintained home, the flower beds I had planted, the porch swing where I often sat in the evenings. The oak tree my husband had planted the day we moved in, now tall and majestic. Sarah unlocked the front door and stepped aside to let me enter first. I walked in slowly, breathing in the familiar scent of home. Everything was exactly as I had left it a week ago, the birthday decorations still on the dining table, the small cake in the refrigerator now spoiled, the bottle of wine on the counter. I'll need my house keys back, I said, turning to Sarah. She hesitated, then reached into her purse and handed them over. Mom, I still don't think this is a good idea. Noted, I replied, but it's not your decision to make. Howard stepped forward. I'll be checking in with Mrs. Mitchell regularly to ensure all agreements are being honored. And I'll expect to see you at my office tomorrow with the power of attorney document and confirmation of the bank transfer. Sarah nodded stiffly. After they left, I stood in my living room, overwhelmed by a mixture of emotions: relief at being home, anger at the betrayal, sadness for the relationship with my daughter that would never be the same again. The phone rang, startling me. It was Margaret. Ellie, are you home? How did it go? I'm home, I confirmed. Sarah's returning the money and surrendering the power of attorney. It's over. Not quite, Margaret said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Open your front door. Confused, I did as she asked. There on my porch stood Margaret, Diane, and Patricia, each carrying a dish covered in foil and wearing party hats. Margaret held a cake with 7 lit candles. Happy belated birthday, Ellie, they chorused. As I invited them in, tears streaming down my face, I realized something profound. Family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes it's defined by love, loyalty, and respect, qualities my own daughter had failed to show me, but that my friends demonstrated in abundance. That was 1 week ago. Today, as I sit at my kitchen table writing this account, I'm still processing everything that happened. Sarah delivered the power of attorney document to Howard as promised, and the $50,000 was returned to my account. She hasn't called or visited since, and I haven't reached out either. We both need time. But I've been busy. Howard helped me create a proper legal will and a legitimate power of attorney naming Margaret, not Sarah, as my representative. I've installed a security system in my house and changed all my banking passwords. I've started volunteering at the local library 3 days a week, reading to children during story hour. And I've made a decision about my future. The betrayal I experienced was painful beyond words, but it also forced me to confront some important truths. I won't live forever. I may eventually need assistance, and I need to be the one making plans for that eventuality, not leaving it to others to decide for me. So next week, I'm meeting with a financial advisor to discuss my options for long-term care insurance. I'm researching senior living communities, not nursing homes, but independent living arrangements where I could have my own small apartment but access to services if needed. I'm making choices on my terms, not having them thrust upon me in the guise of a birthday surprise. As for Sarah, I don't know what the future holds for our relationship. The wound is still too fresh, the betrayal too profound. But she is my daughter, and there is history between us that can't be erased, good memories alongside the bad, love alongside the hurt. A week after my daughter left me in a nursing home on my birthday, I found out that I am stronger than I ever imagined. I discovered who my true family is. And I learned that even at 70, life can take unexpected turns, some devastating, some empowering. Eleanor Mitchell is not done yet, not by a long shot.